Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of See You on the Other Side. I am your co-host, Christine. I am here with my girl, Leah, and we have Kayla Mansfield joining us today.
Hello.
Hi. And we were literally just talking about how to introduce her and what we even should say, but I'm just going to let you do the honor of introducing yourself and who's Kayla.
Okay. I feel like that's such a I don't know. I always talk about how when people want you to introduce yourself, it's like you say your name. A lot of people say I do hair. I'm Kayla. I do hair.
I know.
And
Yeah.
I don't love that, but I think that it also is just people don't want you to give them the deepest answer ever, But I do hair full time. I'm an extension hair artist in Southern Indiana, and I also started a spiritual wellness boutique called Ivory Moon. And just from kind of starting that business, I've met several women who are in the spiritual world, and that's kind of how I met you guys. So just
yeah, let's tell that story.
Yeah, let's tell that story. So first off, you're a manifester. That's your human design, and you are too.
Yes.
So go ahead, and it's your two's meeting that was the
serendipitous.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were at Saturdays with Spirit. Were you there that weekend?
Yeah.
Okay. You literally just walked up and you're like, "Hey, I like your tattoo. I have the same one."
Literally a manifester.
And what is the tattoo though?
444.
Hold up. Let's see it. 444.
And it's like the
same font. So crazy. And I had just gotten that, literally a few days before. So that was kind of crazy.
Right.
But, yeah. And then we were like, I'm a manifester too. You're a manifester? I don't know any other manifestors.
Well, and I think that it was really interesting because from my perspective, I was sitting there. I came with my grandma and my aunt, my husband's family. And, I'm just looking at everybody in the room, and I see you I see you, and I see you have a band tee and leggings you're wearing right now.
Imagine that.
And I was like, this girl looks like we would be friends. She dresses the way I do, and then I saw your tattoo, and I was like, we're the same. We're the same.
Done.
So
did we just become best friends?
Yeah.
Totally.
I just walked up to you, and I was like, we have the same tattoo, and you look really cool.
And that's how you make friends in your 30s.
Yeah. But most people probably wouldn't, they'd be like, ooh.
Yeah,
they would think it, and they would be like, I'm weird.
No, but I think that that whole environment creates such a safe space. Mm-hmm. I think we're all there, and we're all kind of in the same space.
Yeah.
With each other.
Yeah.
So, I've had a couple of little coffee dates with you and texting back and forth with you. I think so have you, mm-hmm. the back and forth conversations. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to have you on because your story is incredible. and I don't know if that's the way you see it, but I kind of want to, you're not just, a hair artiste or a boutique owner. You have a story. You have this beautiful alchemy that brought you to where you are now. Can we get into that?
Yes. And it's so funny you just said that because that's what I want to call my shop, Alchemy. Or I want to call it The Alchemist or something, but I think it's Alchemy.
Have you read the book?
No, I actually haven't yet.
You should.
Yeah.
I'm it's life-changing. And I think before all of this stuff happened with the spiritual stuff with me, I wouldn't have read it the way that I've read it now. So I think it would be really good for you.
That's what I love about the deeper you get with your spiritual journey. You could read the same thing so many times, and depending on where you're at in your journey, it's hits different every time.
Yes. Yes.
So
yeah, you're exactly right. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's hear the dirt. Let's hear the stuff.
Okay. So I have a podcast called The Spiritual Minimalist, and it started just for me as a therapeutic outlet because I had a lot of unpacking to do with my deconstructing my faith and things like that. But more so just really having I just wanted to have an open conversation where people could listen and see that I'm a real person and that like I'm not just like hating on people's spiritual beliefs or their path or whatever. And like part of that was because well, hold on, let me back up. Whenever I started my infertility journey, I guess, I was very public about that. And I shared a lot of it on the internet. And with my job, I have a lot of clients who would always want to know like what's going on in my life. So I was public about that, but then it just kind of all stopped, and I'll go back and tell you that story in a minute. So when I kind of went like silent for a while, then I started having my spiritual awakening, and then I was like, so talking about it hasn't been like a huge problem for me, but it was hard for me to step out in a new identity because I was like, they don't know me as this person. They know me as like the sad girl who wants a baby. You know what I mean? So, but I was like, I have to be a voice for somebody because I know there's got to be other people who are experiencing similar things as myself. And just looking back, I know that my journey through infertility was to get me to this point, you know. So, going back to the beginning, my husband and I we started dating when I was 19.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've actually been together for like 15 or 16 years.
Wow.
And he's a couple years older than I am. And so we started dating really young. And we didn't have the best example for marriage or a healthy relationship. And I didn't really think about any of that until just recently. Starting therapy tomorrow, by the way.
Good for you.
I'm really excited. But so we kind of, I feel like, had a lot of karmic heavy situations that we were going to navigate together. And so I got diagnosed with PCOS whenever I was young. And so I knew it would be potentially a problem to get pregnant. So we wanted to start trying as soon as we got married. So I got married when I was 24, 25. And we started then, didn't have any luck. And then, you know, back then it was like, you had to have, I think, I don't even remember, maybe like a year on paper that you've been trying before they'll give you like Clomid or something like that. So we did that, and basically I just wanted everything to be documented so that like we could go into the next step. And that's manifestor energy, like ready for the next, like. So we did lots of fertility treatments with like Clomid and things like that, and didn't really get anywhere with it. And then we got referred to a specialist, so we started seeing her, did some IUIs, and I did get pregnant off of one IUI, and I miscarried very, very early on. And so, but it was like the first time I had ever been pregnant, so I was like, oh my gosh, like it's possible, but it's also like super devastating because you're not thinking like, I mean, after you've been trying for like 3 years and then you get pregnant, you're like, finally it's over, like, you know. So, so I had that early miscarriage, and then we had, again, like, and I hate to say it like this, but I don't know if it's because now I'm learning I was emotionally bypassing, but I think part of it is like that manifestor, like, okay, like, it's fine, let's just move to the next thing, let's just do the next thing that feels good, like, you know. So I would always just be able to pick myself up very quickly, and my husband was not the same. He required a lot more emotional time to process things. So I think during that time it was really difficult because we processed very differently, you know, and I was like always ready to get back on the roller coaster again and again until I did IVF. So funny story about IVF. So I guess we had been probably, by this point we had been trying for like 6 years, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's crazy to just like say it like, oh, 6 years, you know, like that's a long ass time, you know?
Yeah.
But we decided we were going to like legit see like a really good, not like a local person, like a really good, legit, what is it? Or not endocrinologist, like a fertility clinic.
Okay.
You know, so everybody was telling us to go to Cincinnati, but there was a new place that just opened in Louisville. So, and they were like state of the art. They're good as good as Cincinnati and all the things. So we went to Shadow, like to see the place or whatever, and see the doctor and all that. We talked to them, and I really liked it. Like I felt really good about it. Like felt very drawn to that place. So I told my husband, I was like, I don't know how we're going to pay for it, but like, this is the place I want to go. And so at the same time, there was a radio contest for, it was, well, one of the local radio stations was doing like, Make Me a Mommy. Like it was like the Max Makes Me a Mommy contest or whatever. And so they were partnering with a fertility clinic in the area to give away a round of like IVF or some sort of, yeah.
Interesting.
What? Yes. So I had like 6 people send it to me and they're like, you need to get in this contest. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I really like the doctor we just interviewed. I really want to see this doctor. But I guess like, I mean, shoot, if we won a contest, like I guess I'd go, you know?
Like, what have you got to lose?
Right. Got on the website, the same office. It was the same doctor that was doing it. Yeah. So I'm like getting butterflies.
Oh my God.
So my husband and I talk about it and I'm like, we're going to enter, we have to do something totally different than everybody else. And so I was like, so most people, I was assuming it would be like the wife that would write in like, this is our journey, you know, whatever. And so I was like, what if we write something that's like a conversation between the two of us? So it'll be like what you say to me, what I say to you, like we're just talking to each other and they'll read it as like a conversation. So we like spent a week working on this thing. So we worked on it and everything. I went to go submit it and it like took the first paragraph and that was it. And I was like, what? And so it was like, you can only write 1,000 characters, use 1,000 characters, including spaces and punctuation. And I was like pissed because I was like, how can you have me write 6 years of my life in one paragraph?
Right.
Like that's so insulting to assume that somebody could like pour their heart out to you and tell you how much this would mean to win the contest, you know? So I was like devastated, crying. I was so mad. And my mom was like, oh, honey, you know, my husband, while we were writing our thing, I had put together a video, kind of like the one I just posted on YouTube or on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was like our journey up to that point. And we were watching it to kind of remind ourselves of like things that we've experienced to this point, to kind of like write the essay. And he's like, just send him the link to the thing. He's like, don't even write anything. Just literally say, you know, a video's worth 1,000 words. And so I did. We freaking won.
What?
Yeah. So we won this contest. They posted on the website for the radio, you know, and we had all these people that were like wanting to like follow our story and everything. And so they were like, can we follow you through your process? And I was like, sure, you know. So we started seeing the doctor. Well, I won the contest in May, but we didn't actually end up doing our egg retrieval until I think it was December. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it had taken a few months to do like pre-testing and all this stuff. So in the meantime, we found out that my husband and I have a genetic carrier gene for the same genetic disorder. So they were like, that could factor into why you've had so many miscarriages. And by this point I
was going to ask how many miscarriages.
Four.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had 4 miscarriages and so when we did our egg retrieval, they wanted to test all of our embryos to see if they had any of the carrier gene. So the contest was free for all the in-house stuff, but we had to pay for meds and we had to pay for like the genetic testing. So it was cheaper, but it was still like $10,000, you know.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So we did that. And then my egg retrieval, they took 31 eggs. And I was like stoked because I was like, oh, this is good. Like even if they have like 6 that make it, this is good, you know. And so through the whole process, we ended up only getting 2 embryos to the freezing stage. And then they had to send those off to get them tested for the genetic abnormalities. And they both had severe abnormalities, couldn't use either of them. So we didn't find out until after New Year's. So all Christmas and New Year, we were like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, and I mean, literally, I don't think I've ever been depressed like I have been after that, because truly I felt like, you know, the miscarriages were awful. But knowing in the back of your mind, you still have another step you can go to if you need to,
right.
You know? And just knowing that that was like it. We didn't have money to do it again. We didn't have like that's like as far as you can go, like with science, you know? So I was just like heartbroken and I mean, just angry, all the things. And I couldn't, and I was so mad because I was like, why would God let us win this contest
Right.
to literally break our hearts, you know? And so so really it was like, I was just really pissed. And so, of course, my mom would be like, you can adopt, you know, all the things. And I felt like, yes, I know that. But I do think that a big part of infertility is like, you have to let yourself grieve what you thought your life was going to be.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because if you don't do that, it's really hard to not be resentful of the next step, if it's adoption or whatever, because it's different. And it's not worse or better or whatever. It's different. So it's like, it definitely takes that processing of like letting that life go, that what you imagined, to be able to really step up to do the next chapter, you know? And so we ended up letting some time pass, and then we ended up deciding that we were going to try to do, wait, hold on. It's like, gosh, there's so many things that have happened. It's like the order of things sometimes. And this is, I sometimes think like I have like amnesia from like trauma.
Oh,
because it's so much that I have like pushed it out a lot. So we decided we were going to pursue adoption, and we're going to try to do it the most cost-effective way, which is private adoption through a family friend. So I have a family friend who was a pediatric, like occupational therapist, and she said that she had worked with a lot of kids who were like in foster care and things like that. And so she had messaged me one day and she said, I have a patient who is she's having another child, and I've worked with some of her previous children, and she's just not in a place to keep the child. So I don't know if you'd be open to it, but she needs to find placement for this baby, because the grandmother had been taking care of her children pretty much, and she had some drug issues and things like that. And so at the time I was like desperate, and I was like, you know, I think that any child that ends up with us, we're going to be able to give a better home than like being in a situation where their grandmother's taking care of them, the mom's on drugs or whatever. You know, it's like, it's a difficult situation. And I feel like we'll get whatever we can handle, and God knows what we can handle, you know?
Right.
So we were like, there's going to maybe some issues with like a child who may be born drug addicted, but we're going to trust the process.
Yeah.
And so we agreed to do it. And I had been in communication with the grandmother. And she had basically just told me that like the birth mom trusted her judgment, and that she did not think that, she wanted to get to know us because she was afraid if she relapsed, she wouldn't want to know where the baby was or anything like that. So she would rather keep kind of some space between us. And I totally was like, that's fine, you know. So I would always communicate with the grandmother. And I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right, but I ignored it. And because I was hopeful, I was just like, you know, you're probably just nervous and whatever. So we got home, we did our home study and got certified for that. And then we like met with our attorney, paid our retainer, all that, met with her. And she kind of had all the steps laid out. Like the birth mom needs to sign these papers and meet with us and all this stuff. And so I kept sending that, and they were just like, oh, she, you know, had a hard day today. We're going to talk to her about it tomorrow. Just like a lot of like stories, you know? And, but they sent me ultrasound pictures, things like that. And, they called me one day, or my family friend called me, and she said, there's a problem, or not a problem, but there's an issue. And I was like, okay, what is it? And I thought she was going to say that she miscarried. And she said, there's two, it's twins. And she's like, I don't know if this is a deal breaker, but it's, you know. And so I was like, oh my gosh. But in my mind, you know, again, I'm like, I'm such an eternal optimist. I'm like, 2 for 1. Like,
right.
I'm like, hell yeah.
You're like, this is finally the blessing.
Literally, I'm like, okay, cool. So my husband and I are like, just let's do it.
Yeah,
you know?
we'll figure it out.
So we're like, okay. So, so we ended up full on twin nursery, 2 cribs, 2 rock and plays, the whole thing. And then a couple of my friends ended up throwing me like a shower one night. It was just like a diaper shower. And, I was driving to the party and I had talked to the grandmother and she was like, really made me feel like this is not what the birth mom wants. That like, we're just hopeful that when she gives birth, that we'll be able to talk her into giving them to you. And I was just like, what do you mean? You know? So I had to go into this party knowing that like, I might not even end up with these babies, you know? And so it was really hard to go to that. And I mean, it was just like I said, like 6 of my friends. It wasn't like a huge party or anything. But I was super nervous. And so then some time a month passes and I knew it was getting close to like her potentially giving birth because that was the other thing. We didn't know exactly when her due date was because the twins were not measuring. Like it was a whole thing. And so, because one of them was a lot smaller. And so, plus she had been like on Suboxone. So we were like, we don't even know. I mean, she may go into labor like super early, you know. And my family friend, she called me. I was at work one night. She called me. It was like in the evening. And she's like, she had the babies and they were stillborn. And I was just like, I mean, like, you know, awful, sobbing. And so I had to leave work and go home and tell my husband. And so went home, talked to him, and it was just like, I mean, at this point, between the IVF and that, like, I was totally like, have never felt so in a dark place where I was just like, I don't care if I lose my entire business. Like, I don't have the will to, I don't give a shit anymore about anything. Like, I just, what's the point? You know, I was just not suicidal, but just very like, I don't care.
Depressed.
Yeah, just super depressed. Like, I was like, I don't care if I lay in my bed and everybody fires me. And, you know, I was like, I don't care. And, so, yeah, so that happened. And like seeing my friends like all be mothers and like go to all their baby showers and like, I mean, their kids are, you know, in like 3rd grade now, you know, and I'm like, they're just moving on with their lives. And so it definitely was difficult to like, it was difficult going through all the baby showers. And it was difficult, like, seeing all of them, like, their kids are growing up and they're living a different life than I am. And so I think for a while I was, like, really kind of, not resentful at them, but just resentful at the situation that, like, I'm losing friendships, you know, and even though they're physically still there, like, it's just emotionally, we're on different chapters of life, you know. So that was difficult. So went through that. Had some time like to really just totally like get off the family, you know, journey. And my husband's brother passed away unexpectedly, and that was very, very, very difficult for him. And I think for him that was a really big turning point too, because it was just his brother was, I mean, seemingly healthy, and it wasn't expected. It was a heart condition, and you know, when someone young passes away too, it's a lot of speculation, like, what is it? What happened? You know? And so he just, I mean, it really was excruciating for him. So he, I think, was on his journey with his own self, mental health and all that. And I encouraged him to go to therapy because he was having a lot of seasonal depression and also like, I think like survivor guilt, you know, like he just, it was his younger brother. So he was like, didn't understand, like, he's not supposed to die before me, you know? So it was very hard for him. And he has really bad anxiety. So he would start to think like he's having a heart attack. He's all these things. I mean, he literally was like afraid of death. And so he would be like, I need to go to the emergency room. Something's wrong with me. And this was like happening like pretty frequently. And I told him like, I really think your anxiety is manifesting into like physical. And that's the thing. Cause I would tell him like, I think you're anxious. I think it's your, anxiety, depression. And he would say, no, something's physically wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say, I believe you. It's not that I don't think you're making that up. It's just that you physically can manifest, physical symptoms and illness from emotional stress,
Right.
So, yeah, I encouraged him to start going to therapy, and that has been really, really good for him. But I mean, our marriage, it definitely was difficult to like navigate through all that. And after that, we had more situations where we had like attempted, like, we had a family who offered, or talked to us about if we would be potentially open to fostering their like niece and nephew. We met the kids and we were going to move them into our home. But then we also at the same time had another couple who, reached out to us through Facebook and were like, we've been following your journey. We had embryos left from when we did IVF, and we feel like God wants us to give them to you. So I ended up like having a surgery to prepare for that. We were going to adopt those embryos. The couple got divorced, completely ghosted us. Like, yeah. So all that, we were just like, and as far as the foster kids, I was like, I don't feel right moving them into our home and pursuing this. Like, that's a lot of change for these children. And like, they were still on the track to be reunited with their birth families or their, biological parents. So I was like, I don't want them to be an afterthought. Like, they need to be our main focus if they're going to move in here. Otherwise, I feel like if we want to pursue the embryo adoption, like, it's not fair to them to move them in. So we had decided to put that on hold, and the family was really nice and they understood and everything. But they were like an older couple that were raising these younger children. So that was, that was 2019, I think.
Okay.
So then 2020, pandemic, is when yeah, literally.
So,
spiritual awakening.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Through all of this, I know we haven't talked about it and we don't have to go into detail about it, but like, were you religious? Were you like praying? Was this a thing that... Oh, yeah. Okay, because I know a lot of times when people go through that much grief, it can really shake the way you are.
So for me, I was born into a Catholic family, went to private school, Catholic school, until I was 18, So twice a week went to church, with school and with my family, like very much forced into the Catholic religion. But it's all I ever knew, so it was normal, And then I met my husband. He's like, you're literally in a cult.
Is he not religious?
Oh, no, he's not. That's the thing. He's like, I don't subscribe to organized religion. I would always be like, okay. But yeah, no, he's spiritual. He's not religious at all. So, but he was a teammate. He came to church with me a handful of times. Okay. But he would go, he just wanted to impress my parents. Yeah. He would come to Christmas and Easter, but then once we got married, I guess when I moved out of my parents' house, I stopped going to church. And I think for me, I kind of just always felt like it felt more forced than like truth to me, and I believe in something bigger, and I'm so glad I was raised in a situation where I believed in a bigger power, but I was definitely like, always had kind of reservation about like the whole story of like what Catholicism is based around. I was just like, I don't know. I don't think God cares about that. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
But so I stopped going whenever I moved out, and then I had a couple of years where I didn't go at all. And then I like kind of wanted to go back to church. My sister was like dragging me. She's like, please come to this Christian church with me. So she started going to a large Christian church in Louisville.
I have a name for it.
Yeah.
You have
a name for it?
Six Flags Over Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I was like, this is the jam. Like,
I used to
can drink my coffee in my seat. Like, and there's a concert. Yeah. This is awesome. So I loved it. I mean, I really was like, this is cool. So, I went a lot. Once I started going back, because at first I was like, these people are crazy, putting their hands in the air and singing. I was like, this is weird. But going from like Catholicism, where everyone's like robotic, like,
oh God, I grew up Catholic.
It's like they don't even, unless they're chanting or they're just like dead silent. There's no like it's serious business when you're at church. But then the Christian church is like rock concert.
Yeah. That's what I grew up Christian.
Yeah. So, but yeah, back to what you're asking, like during my infertility stuff, I was like, I need support. I need to be around women who get it, who like have been on the same journey as me. And so I was wanting to go to infertility group. There wasn't one in my church. So who signed up to be the leader?
Of course you would. Of course you would.
So I was
I'm going to start this thing.
Literally, I was like, no one will do it. I'll do it. So I went to like training to be a facilitator through the church and all this stuff. Like, was ready to go. Went into my first meeting. Nobody came. Went into my second meeting. Nobody came. I was like, but I get it. You know, it's like, it's a huge insecurity and people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to share. A lot of times I feel like by the time that you're saying something out loud about where you're at in your infertility, it is like years later, because it's like, you always think, well, next month I'll get pregnant. Next month I'll get pregnant. Like, you're not thinking like, once you're 5 years in, you're like, my life sucks. Like, this is just what it is. And I'm not lying about it anymore because it's too painful. Like, and you don't really care, like, what people, you don't care about trying to maintain this, like, image of, like, everything's great because you're so worn out with it. You're like, I'm not happy. And it's hard. So but I would go to, like, all the Bible study groups and women's groups and, like, and I needed that during that time. So for me, like, it was a necessary step. And then pivoting to where I'm at now, like, once I had my spiritual awakening in 2020. So let me just tell you that story.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was going to.
Pop in with any questions if y'all have.
No, we're just like absorbing. I mean, I am. I'm absorbing.
So we moved during the pandemic to our home that we live in now. And I think that was very, very necessary because now looking at the energetics of things, that home was the only home that we experienced all that trauma in. I mean, it's like a gray cloud. Like, it's just like, I mean, leaving just, I feel bad for the girl who moved in there after us because she probably should have, like, cleansed the whole place. Like, the energy was probably so heavy
this entire house for you before you move in.
If I would have, like, been into sage at that point, I would have done it for her, but I wasn't there yet. So, but yeah, so we moved and that was, like, such a breath of fresh air. It was like a new chapter. We were like, let's just focus on you and me. That's the other thing with infertility is like, and I really do, like, I'm proud of this now. And I want to just make this clear to anyone who might be listening, who's at this point in their life. But like, it was a long journey, but I do feel like there are couples who don't end up with a baby in the end. And like, you don't hear about those couples. Like, there's no books about those couples. There's no like podcasts about those couples. Like, you just think they're these like sad creatures who just, I don't know what they do, but like, looking at myself, like, I want to be an example of somebody who has been through hell and back with their infertility, but is still very fulfilled and very happy and, like, is trying to find the stuff that I put on hold for so long through my infertility journey, like, the money I was spending, the time, the energy, the effort, my body, like, all the things. I put so much of that on, like, what I wanted to do in my 20s and my early 30s, like, because I was so focused on having a baby. And now I'm at a point where, like, if I want to sleep in, I'm going to sleep in. If I want to spend my money on myself, I'm going to spend my money on myself. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it because this is what my life is. So instead of, like, being sad and ashamed and, like, wishing it was something that it's not, like, I'm just going to fully embrace it and I'm going to not feel sorry for it. And I'm going to just enjoy the gift that I have of what I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, have gratitude. Yeah. So where was I? Spiritual journey.
Having gratitude.
Well, and I think a lot of times those situations create distance between partners because a lot of the focus is off of like enjoying each other's company or enjoying your sex life. Yeah. Let's just be honest. Like,
totally. So
sorry,
no,
not
you're
to
good.
like,
No.
But I think that kind of pulls people apart. So, you know, obviously where you are now, like, you're like, okay, now I can like put my energy towards our marriage and our life together.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, I think we never had a conversation that we were like, we're just done having trying to have kids. Like, and I think a part of me kind of believes that, like, we may in the future, like, end up with a child. I don't know and how that looks exactly, but I do feel like it's important as part of our journey for us to really just look at what our life is and just really take everything we can from it and, like, really just totally invest in what it is. And not be living outside of that bubble of, like, well, it could be this, or it could have been that, or it could, it's like, okay, this is what it is. Like, let's just really find all the beauty in this, because I think for so long we ignored that part of it, because we were so focused on, like, we'll be happy when we have a baby, instead of just being like, let's just be happy with each other,
Yeah.
So, So basically in 2020, we moved, got into the new house, and it was during, like, crazy political shifts and all that. So I really started to have a lot of, like, what the hell is going on in the world? It's just like everything just felt like, I mean,
heavy.
It literally felt like the upside down,
Yes.
Like, I was like, I don't think we're in the same world we were in, like, 6 months ago. But literally it felt like a light switch moment where, like, just one day I felt so different about everything. Like, and I felt like I couldn't not be vocal about it. Like, I was like, I need to, like, say these things out loud. Like, and so anytime I would see just people being hateful for, like, limited beliefs or, scarcity mindset or whatever it was, like, I felt myself, like, being more vocal about, like, well, that's your opinion, and, like, other people feel differently, and, like, your religion is telling you to be scared of that or whatever, and so I just started to be more vocal about that. But I was also on TikTok a lot, and that was like, so I saw this girl on TikTok. I love this story. I told you this. I haven't told you this, Christine, but so I was on TikTok. I saw this girl talking about her awakening journey, and she started talking about how she was learning about Akashic records, and, like, how before you're born, you sit down with your, like, team of cosmic whatever. You're, like, your spirit guides. You sit down with them and you, like, talk about, like, previous lives that you've had and, like, what lessons you need to learn in this life, and, like, what your karmic cycles that you're going to break in this life are, and that you agree to them before you come. And then when you're born, your memory is, like, wiped, and you're on this journey. And that all these souls are contracted to be in your life, and that you will reincarnate with several of the same souls over and over again. But you might play different roles. So you might be, like, mother, daughter in one relation, or in one life, and sisters in another, whatever, each, you might switch. Like, you might be your mom's grandmother or something, whatever it is. So she was talking about this thing, and I just was so obsessed with her videos and learning about it. And I was like, this is so fascinating. I was just very open-minded at the time. So I go to work one day when we get back from the pandemic, and she's sitting in the chair next to me. She was at the salon with one of the other girls getting her hair done. And I was like, you've been all over my TikTok. And she's like, oh my gosh. Never, like, had a conversation with her. Okay, it gets better. So then she's like, I'm like, I have to know everything about these Akashic records, and, like, she does what's called Akashic record interpretation. So she's telling me there's, like, a formula. She's, like, studied under this certification, and this guy created this method where it's basically like an algorithm. They take your name and they convert it to, like, the original Hebrew text, and then the Hebrew text is converted to numerology. It's a whole thing. They add in your birthday and all this stuff. So she's like, this is really interesting, though. She said, the sounds that create your name have a vibrational frequency that keeps you in alignment with your soul's path. So, like, your name is given to your parents by the universe, and, like, your kids' names are given to you all by the universe. Like, so sometimes they say, like, you don't know your kid's name until you look at them. It's like the universe will give you the name. And so you should just keep saying your kids' names a bunch of times and get them back in alignment.
That's why. Is that why, like, when they're, like, on the fritz, you're like,
you say their
Ellen
full
Ruby.
name. Yeah, say their full name.
Yes.
So she's like telling me about it, and she's like, I can just show you. Like, she's overwhelmed. She's like, whoa. She's like,
that happens a lot.
So much to absorb. So she's like, what's your full birth name? So I tell it to her. She like types it in. She's like, okay, what's your date of birth? Types it in. So she's telling me that certain number combinations mean certain things. The first thing she says to me is, okay, so your physical karma in this life says barren to fruitful. And it says, this may manifest, and she's like, I'm really sorry to say this. It says, it may manifest as several miscarriages or unable to conceive a child.
You didn't know her?
No. And so I was just like...
You have to send me her TikTok.
I know. Literally, everyone says that. So she's from Louisville, actually. Or no, she's from Lexington, but she moved to California, and she now does it full time. She quit her job, and like that's all she does. And she's a content creator.
You gotta have her on.
Yeah, you should.
Send me your shit.
That would be awesome because she'll do your all's contracts. Oh, it's so wild. So she did it. It's like 20 pages long. Okay, it tells you your physical karma, spiritual karma, physical talent, spiritual talent, physical goals, spiritual goals, and then the whole thing together is your like soul destiny.
What?
Yeah. So when she told me that, I was really when she told me that, what happened was I was flabbergasted. But I was really like, it felt like the biggest healing.
Like a relief?
Yes, because it was like, I had always thought in my mind, like, this is just destined. Like, I'm not supposed to have kids. Like, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but like, there's no other way you could convince me that this much has happened to me and I still don't have a child. And like, this has to be written in the stars for me. Like,
right. Like, it's not you or anything you or your husband.
Right. It's like just the journey that I was supposed to be on.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it was very healing for me. And in that moment, it was like, that's the moment that clicked for me where I was like, I have to help other people have this feeling of like understanding that like, this is just their life path. And that like, and I still sort of believe, again, like I said, that I may end up with a child in the future. But I think part of that is because I had to break that karmic cycle first of like loving myself, loving my spouse, having that unconditional love without the need of like, well, once I have this, I'll be happy. Once I have this, I'll be happy. Fulfilled. Yeah. Like I had to get there on my own. And so, so it was like, that's what led me down to like wanting to start Ivory Moon and things like that. So it was just like snowballing after that. Like I was like, what, like you say, like I want to just absorb everything. I want to read all the things. I want to learn it all. Like I'm like a sponge. Like I want to just, I don't even want to sleep because I want to know it all. But yeah, so for me, Ivory Moon was like, I want people to be, because kind of going back to my religious transition to spirituality, I was like, I want people to have an environment that they feel comfortable stepping into to explore things without having that, like, I'm going right to hell. Like, this is the devil's shop, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so I want it to be a really comforting environment where they can learn in a safe space where, like, they're not going to be judged. And it's just totally, like, what do you feel drawn to? Do you feel drawn to crystals? Do you feel drawn to frequencies or whatever? Like, and just also learning the connection between, like, the physical body and the like spiritual body and like how everything is connected. And I think in the religious mindset, it's like they want to separate everything, like nothing is connected.
Yes. Well, and did you ever grow up and maybe you went to somebody and said, you know, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ, and then oftentimes the response is just pray about it.
Right.
Just pray about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what does that mean, though?
Well, and that's, so for me, when I started like deconstructing my faith, what that looked like for me was like, I call it the inventory. So I did a blog post about this, and it's like, I had to sit with myself and literally go through every single thing that I was taught religiously and be like, does that resonate with me? Or is it just something I've been told so many times that I've taken it on as truth? Because if it doesn't feel like my truth, I don't think it is. Like, I think it's just something I'm repeating, you know? So I had to like really go through so much of that and like let go of what really was not resonating for me. And so one thing I noticed when I was doing that was like, to me, what I felt like religion felt like was, I understand it. Now it's my job to police everyone and tell them, you're doing that wrong. God doesn't want you to do that. You need to pray about that. I was like, telling everybody. And spirituality was like, you don't even have time to worry about anybody else, because look inside. Like, and that's the thing. It was like, in religion, God lives up there and I'm down here and I have to constantly prove myself. Where spirituality is like, no, God is literally in here and I don't have shit to prove. I just have to listen and connect inside of me and learn my patterns that I've just taken on through my life that aren't really mine. It's like learned behaviors, and let go of that and just be like my most authentic self, you know? So Ivory Moon is more of like tools to help you connect back into yourself, you know? So
what's interesting, I have a client and she's very Christian, but we have these conversations because she's one of the few Christians I feel like I can have these meaningful, deep conversations with, because she understands where I am in my spiritual journey. And I think a lot of times people think spiritual and religious are the same. I did anyway. Like, I was so afraid of being spiritual because I was so against being religious.
Yeah.
And they're not the same at all. But it's funny because we've had these conversations where it's like, you know, you pray and I will meditate on it.
Right.
And we're doing the same thing, but what I'm doing is wrong.
Right.
Or this is interesting because I was telling her, we haven't talked about this in an episode yet, about my Kundalini experience, the protocol that I did with Erica. I was telling her about it, and afterward, I mean, I'm in tears, and she thinks it's a beautiful story, and she says, what's crazy about that is if I went to someone in my church and said the Holy Spirit spoke to me and I saw angels and I saw my grandmother, they would be like, yeah. But if you told them your story about what you experienced, they would be like, that's witchcraft.
Right.
Which is, it's the same thing.
But I think that with a lot of organized religion, there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
There's so much fear placed there on the unknown or things that are different. And I think it's like,
I guess that's the thing. Like, you're telling me I'm going to go to hell for doing this, but I don't, like, this is for me.
Right. When spirituality is about you.
Yeah.
But like with religion, it's what Kayla said. It's focusing on other people and other things,
what they're doing
what
wrong.
they're doing, what you're doing wrong. And there's just so much fear there, instead of like, we all have our own interpretation of whatever, and that is okay. So it's like, even bringing like, you know, we need to be praying in schools and we need to be doing this. And it's like, okay, because that's what you believe, which is great. That's wonderful. But just because you believe that doesn't mean the way that you interpret religion is the way I interpret religion. Right. And this person interprets religion and this person. And we put it into this box that it does not have to be or need to be in. Yeah. And everyone else should fit into that box. And that is where problems arise with religion, and people not wanting to be like, well, I'm not A, B, and C, so what the fuck is the point of even going?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to fit in.
Well, and I think that like spiritualists, which is what I consider myself, most spiritualists just hold space for people to believe what they want. Like, yes. Like, if you want to be a Christian, be a Christian.
Right.
Like, if you want to be whatever, that's fine. And all I ask is that you allow me space to do what I resonate with.
Right.
But I feel like most religious people tend to think that their religion is the most superior, most correct, and then want to patrol how you practice yours.
Right.
And that's what's so like disheartening, because it's like, okay, but again, you're putting it in a box, and some people like aren't meant to thrive in that box, you know? Like,
and to me, like, to believe in something, I want to learn about other things to be like, okay, yeah.
That resonates
yeah,
with me.
I do fuck with this, and I do believe in it, because I've, also learned about this and that and, this over there. And I've formed my own opinion by being presented a lot of different,
right,
like, thought processes and beliefs, and where there is that fear there to not even learn anything new, because it's like, oh, it's like with,
it's not what I grew up with.
Right. It's even with psychedelics. Oh, I can't even listen to it. And it's like, me talking about my mushroom experience isn't going to do anything to you. You're just hearing about my experience. Doesn't mean you have to do it.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to believe it. And oftentimes that is like, there's been a lot of situations where I've talked about my mushroom journey, and I'm going into mushrooms, and people have been like, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, I never said you should.
Yeah.
I was just talking about my personal experience, where it's even, so it's like learning about somebody who is atheist or, just spiritual. People are like, can't even go there.
Well, okay. We were talking about this before we started recording, like about how in AA there's like a step.
Oh yeah.
And you said it kind of happened for you that way. You like just woke up one day. But again, I don't think that that's like a step. Like you weren't like, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and have a spiritual awakening. Yeah. And what I love about this, and we talked about this earlier too, is my spiritual awakening happened because of plant medicine. And I didn't know that's what was happening. I really thought I was going fucking crazy because I didn't have anybody in my circle who was also going through an awakening. I literally, I started finding TikToks and I'm like, that's what this is? That's what's going on? Holy shit. Everything makes sense.
Well, everybody jokes about it's like you wake up and you're in the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's like literally you're like, everything you just see the connection.
You took the red pill.
You see the connection to everything and you're like, holy shit, does anybody else see this?
Yes. And when they don't, you're like, how are you not seeing this? Am I going crazy? So that's what's kind of cool about it, is that my spiritual awakening really kind of happened after my first mushroom experience. And it took me probably 6 months to realize that's what was happening. Yeah. But for you hadn't done psychedelics.
Yeah, so for me, and it is really strange, like you said, I didn't choose to wake up. And it's funny because my husband, when I was going through this, it actually brought us closer together, because I asked him, I said, I would just say things and he would be like, yeah. This is what I've been telling you.
Oh my God.
He's like, welcome to the world, And I was just like, holy cow, this is what how you've been seeing the world. I said, when did you have your awakening? He's like, I was born this way. And I was like, wow. What? But it makes so much sense to me, because he does tend to be kind of like it's weird. It's like by choice, he would prefer to be antisocial and keep to himself, because he's such an empath that it's hard for him to be around a lot of people, and it's hard for them to not see what he sees. And he's like, you're doing it to yourself. You know what I mean? He's like, what are you doing? And so he's kind of more antisocial, but he has to show up in the world. So he puts on his chameleon skin and goes out into the world and becomes whatever people want him to be. But so whenever I would tell him, I had this realization, and we'd had the best deep conversations, and he's like, yeah, dude, isn't it wild? And
welcome.
Yeah. And I was just and it made me feel bad, because I was thinking, gosh, because I know how I feel isolated from people I'm really close with, family and friends, because of how my brain works now. And I think even as a child, that's how he felt. And as a young adult, and how it's and I think the more that you try to ignore it, you can't.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Louder.
And I tell people, when you have a spiritual awakening, you don't even know how to turn it off or to be the person you were before.
No.
It feels like that is literally a closed door that you're not allowed to go back through, and your mind just doesn't allow it. It's weird.
That we've said that you can't unlearn what you start learning, and you can't unsee what you start to see.
But
and it's very isolating when you're the only one.
Yeah. Right. Because it's hard to go into situations and be like, okay, be a little bit less, because you make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a hard.
So it's interesting. My husband has always been an atheist, but that's also not spiritual.
Yeah.
And so now he is, I don't want to say, he's like kind of.
He's curious.
He's curious. And so sometimes he'll say something and I'm like, yeah. It sounds like it's like the husband in your version. Like, I'm like, yeah, I've known that.
Yeah.
You know? So it's kind of funny watching it happen because I think he's also fighting it too. I fought it too. I'm like, I can't be spiritual. I don't like religion.
Well, and I do think the more spiritual I become, the less like I want to be so conscious that I do not, like, I'm not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't gravitate towards, like, alcohol and things like that because I don't want anything that's going to fog it up.
Yeah.
Like, I like to have that clear understanding or expand more. I don't like to, like, go the opposite direction.
Right.
So it's, like, hard for me sometimes to be around friends who just want to, like, get blacked out drunk because I'm like, why? Like, do y'all hate your lives that much? Like, you want to, like, escape it? Like, I don't know. And I also just feel like, so I was listening to Audrey's podcast actually earlier. And
oh, the one that came out today?
Yeah.
Oh.
And she sent it to me. And so, and I was thinking about this, and she said something about healing is, and I said feeling. In my head, I said feeling. Healing is feeling. Like, so when you're able to connect with your feelings and really sit with them, then you can, like, really have these aha moments and, like, really break through, like, and break cycles. You can see patterns. And so kind of going into my plant medicine journey, I recently did have my mushroom experience, and it was wild.
Let's go into that because I don't know
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I told her I knew you did it, but we haven't really talked
Like, we
about.
know no details except for the fact that you did it.
Yeah, so I am very good about, like, just letting things reveal as they should and, like, letting them unfold and all the things. So, like, I was very, like, planning it, how it was going to go. I was taking time off work. I was like, I'm going to do it with this person. I'm going to create this vibe. Like, I was very intentional, which is important. But then I also kind of had this, like, well, my husband was like, you don't get to decide, like, what you're shown. Like, whatever's meant to come up is going to come up. So you need to, like, the more that you're trying to plan, you're probably going to make yourself, like, maybe have a bad experience because you're controlling it, you know?
Has he done them before?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but he was like, when he had done them in the past, it was more like for fun, like young, you know, just whatever. It wasn't like therapeutic really. So I had planned it, you know, and the day came, my plans totally changed. Like, just my timing of things changed. The person I ended up doing it with changed. And I spent, I would say, half of my experience by myself with someone else there. But I'm glad it happened that way because I felt so comfortable, and I felt so, like, comfortable in the sense that I could just, like, I really let go, you know, like I was at home and I just felt more like in my own element. And so trying to put it into words is very difficult, so I won't even try. But I did experience a couple of moments that I was like, wow, this feels like how I feel right now is how everyone should feel all the time.
So let me ask you this. How much did you take?
I took, I didn't do a hero's journey or whatever. I did, or dose or whatever it's called. I did, like, close to 2.5 grams.
Okay. So for those who don't know, when Lee and I have done our heroic journeys, we've done 5 grams.
Whew.
Or 6.
You've done 6. I'm not there yet.
But yeah, 2.5 is a decent amount.
Yeah, no, that's still a good amount for sure.
So let me say this real fast. So I had no desire to do mushrooms up until maybe like 3 months ago. And a friend of mine had a whole bag of them, and she was like, oh, do you want to come over tonight and we'll hang out? And so she was like, do you want to just have, like, a microdose? And I was like, okay, which I was like, oh my God, I'm going to, like, trip. I was so scared, you know? And so she gave me, like, a cap and a stem. And I was like, I'm just gonna start with this, and like if it's then I'll know to stop, So I did that, and I was like, I texted my husband like, I'm doing this, like check on me in an hour,
This is where I am.
Yeah, literally. Here's the address. No, it's my next door neighbor. But so I did that, and I felt fine, and then she was like, well, do you want another one? And I was like, okay, so I took another one, and I was still like, okay, that's all I'm doing, And so I don't even know how much it was. We didn't weigh it out, but not a ton. And I noticed that the biggest thing I could observe about that situation, so that was my very first time, was that I have an individual in my life who's in my family that I have a difficult relationship with, and we don't always see eye to eye, and I have a lot of, I think, some resentment built up, and just looking back at my childhood, things that I'm like, you were the adult, what are you doing, and so I have a sense of, as I'm stepping into my own, I'm learning boundaries, and this person doesn't like boundaries, and so it's it's hard right now, because it's the more I set a boundary, the more it causes
an issue.
Yeah, so it's not fun, and then I get more angry, because I'm like, if you would respect me, I wouldn't have to place all these boundaries, So I see a picture of this person and on my phone, and I just had the softest heart, and I felt like I looked at this person as a child and was like, they don't know. They're a lost soul on a journey, and they can't give you what they don't know for themselves, what they don't have for themselves. And I had so much understanding and compassion and empathy for that. It was my ego melted in that moment, and it was just I could see this person for a soul, and not this physical being who did these things that I, whatever. It's just okay, this person is a soul that really is kind of lost, and so it gave me that perspective of just love them, and if you have to love them from afar, just wish them well, and they're on a difficult path, and there's nothing you can do to set them free. They're kind of their own worst nightmare, in a way. So it was interesting that was my first experience, but I liked it. And I liked that it gave me that softness of not oh, all is well and I forgive all, but just understanding a little more,
Give you a new perspective.
Right. And so like I said, dissolving that ego just enough to be they're learning too, So that was my first experience. And then I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can't wait to do it again, And then that's when we planned the big event, And so, so then I had that night, and it went well. And like I said, I had this moment where I was just this feels amazing. It was I felt all the noise quieted.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually did physically too, because I had on noise canceling headphones, and I was sitting outside at one point. My dogs were running around my yard, and it was lightning outside. So the sky kept lightening up, and I was listening to a playlist or something. And I was just it was I was watching life, but not anything was directly affecting me. It was just
I'm getting chills.
I was watching it like a movie. I could just enjoy watching, and I was this is so beautiful. And it was and I think it gave me the perspective of when we're going through our day-to-day life, it's everything that's happening around us, we take so personally. This is inconvenient for me. This is going to make me late. This is, whatever it is. It's everything feels like a personal attack for some reason, but it's it's actually just happening, and you're the one making it about you. You're the one taking it on, as it's affecting you, the universe did this to you. And it's really just happening around you, So it was that experience for me was a metaphor, I guess, of actually life is happening, and you get to determine what is happening to you or what's just happening around you. And so, yeah, it was really, it's but it also made me think in a way too, I believe in timeline hopping. So in a way it was I just kept having this thought of the next timeline is so, okay, this sounds weird, but this is what I imagine.
Say it.
So, okay.
Nothing sounds weird here.
You know those like old time projectors that are like slides?
Yeah.
That it would go like,
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why, but in that state, I was thinking like one of those little slivers, because everything felt like thin. And I said this to Erica, I was explaining it to her, and I was like, I don't know. It's like reality is thin. I don't know. And she's like, that's how I feel when I channel. She's like, I feel like this thinness, like this thread that's like skinny and like connected.
For those who don't know, Erica has been on our podcast before, and she's the one who talks like human design and all that stuff. So, okay. Yep, that's Erica.
So but I was like, I felt like, I guess the timeline we're on is like one of those slides, and that you could easily jump to a different slide. They're not that, it's like our reality is so this way in our minds, like it's so big and vast, but it's really like, what if it was just compact and like the next version of our reality is right here. We're just like unaware of it. So it's like we can just jump very quickly. And it's just more a mental conscious thing. It's not really like a physical, like we think the physical plane is like this huge ongoing thing, but it's like our reality is like, I don't know. Like I said,
that makes sense to me. It might not make sense to somebody who's never done much.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, I don't know how to access those other timelines. Like I don't know how to physically jump there. Although I do have a theory about that.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, I think when we sleep is when we do our timeline hopping.
Oh, yeah.
Like we wake up in a new timeline. Because also think about this. Your brain can't go without sleep. Because what happens when you don't sleep enough is reality starts to like disintegrate. And you start to hallucinate. Literally. You know what I mean? So it's like, what if your brain is not made to sustain like that many hours without rest because it's meant to recalibrate onto the new timeline? But like, so if you try to outsmart it and you just try to stay awake, literally reality starts like fucking with your brain. Like,
I never thought about that.
I never either. I knew you'd be a good interview.
like I wonder like what the longest time is that somebody's ever gone without sleep and like what happened. Like,
well, do you remember that show that it was like one of those, I think it came out in 2020, maybe it didn't, but the show where they would sleep deprive these people and have them do these tasks to win like $1 million. And they couldn't do it. Oh my God.
They would do like challenge.
It was kind of like something like that where they would have to do this ridiculous thing, like count these pennies and the closest you get, like, but they would sleep deprive them first. So these people are like, oh my God.
Yeah. So they can't even like think straight.
Yeah. Anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what came after that?
Okay. So for me, okay, so let me just say this real quick too. So those are the only two times I've had with psychedelic mushrooms. And I'm glad that I like kind of stair-stepped it the way I did because now I'm like, full on, let's do 5 grams. Like, I'm like, women's retreat, let's go. Like, I'm ready. I'm like so excited to do my next experience. But I will say that, like you guys said, like the mushroom cloud, like it's this like unraveling of like new things that just come up. Like, I mean, it's like every day something new comes up and you're like, holy cow. Like,
so how long ago did you do that?
I think it was, I don't know. Do you know? It was like a month ago.
No, I feel like it was 2 months.
2 months? Okay. So yeah,
time is weird.
You're still putting those
yeah.
puzzle pieces together?
So one thing I noticed is that, so my husband has been going to therapy. I'm getting ready to start therapy because I have noticed that the way we communicate because this is the thing, going back to the inventory thing, I was kind of like looking at my life like, I'm really happy with where I'm, like, I've done a good job of like noticing what I don't resonate with and like eliminating it from my life. But in my marriage, I feel like there's still some heaviness of like, I wish it was a little bit easier, you know, and I get it. Relationships are hard, but I felt like, what is like, where do our issues come up? Like, what is the parts that aren't comfortable for me? And a lot of it was how we communicate in arguments. Because for one, my husband has a lot of anxious attachment style, and I have more of a avoidant attachment style, which is like the killer combo.
We've talked about, like, because I'm anxious and my husband's avoidant.
Yeah.
You're anxious too, right?
I'm anxious.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll give you some good perspective to think about.
Yeah, because every time she's talked to me about any of this, I'm like,
that's interesting.
He sounds like me.
That's interesting. So you're a manifestor. What's your personality type?
My numbers?
Yeah.
I'm a 5-1 investigator and heretic.
Okay.
We're 3-5.
And my husband, I know a lot of 3-5s. My husband is a 5-1 also.
Ah.
But he's either a manifesting generator or just a generator. I can't remember. But so anyway, but it's kind of nice because we both love to, like, in the investigator portion, as you both have, like, it's like you want to, like, learn it all, like, just everything you can. You want to consume as much information. And then the heretic, which is funny, is, like, I think so fitting because it's like you like to challenge the, like, black and white narrative. Like, you can always find a gray area. Like, you're like, well, why are you trying to box that in? Like, there's nuance to everything, you know? So we're both like that. But anyway, so in our relationship, I noticed that our attachment styles, and I noticed that, like, I thought I was just really great at, like, dealing with my emotions. I was like, I am so emotionally mature. Like, things don't bother me. I don't sweat the small stuff. Like, this man just likes to make mountains out of molehills. And I'm like, he's the problem, you know? Well, like, you know, I'm just, like, thinking, and the thing is, like, I don't mean he's a problem. I mean, like, I know his background, and I know, like, he's had some abandonment in his life and things like that. So it's like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
These are his trauma responses. And so it was like, for me in my brain, I was like, okay, just, like, kind of like, poor thing. Like, he's just been through a lot. Okay? Not taking any accountability. And then it's like, oh, I'm the problem. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem.
I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah. So then I realized, like, genuinely, I thought I processed my emotions well. And then I realized you don't process anything. You just jump to a conclusion. Like, you just go from, here's the problem, here's the solution. That it's a waste of time to, like, feel the feelings because it doesn't change anything. Just get on with it.
Okay, Tony.
Something you said to me that, like, I've used this. You said I thought I was really good at managing my emotions, and it turns out I was just really good at suppressing them.
Yeah. And I thought
that will stick with me forever.
In my rational brain, I thought I would know if I was suppressing because it's like you have to like that takes effort. Is what I thought. I thought, like, you would just know because you would be like,
oh, I have this feeling. Boom.
Yeah. No, and I never felt that way. So I was like, well, I'm not suppressing because I'm not actively pushing my feelings away. But then it was like, once I sat and really, like, looked, I was like, oh, like, but you're not allowing yourself to feel. That's the difference. Like, it's not like you're choosing to push them away, but you're, like, not allowing to feel discomfort. Like, you're just, like, you tell yourself it's not productive. And that's what I would tell myself. And I really thought, yeah. Well, this is the other thing. I'm a Capricorn moon, which your moon sign is your, like, emotions, how you process your emotions. Capricorns are very, like, productive. They're very great with, like, getting things done. They're very good at, like, business. Like, they're
Aren't you a Capricorn?
I am, but it's not my moon.
So they're just, like, very, like, systematic. They like
Capricorn sun.
They like to get it done. They like to just do it, you know? They like systems and, like, just to, like, you know. So I thought, well, that's just because, like, a Capricorn moon placement, I'm just, you know, like, it's not productive. Like, but then, like, the more I unpacked, I was like, no, actually, I really need to feel because feeling is healing. So I need to feel these things or else I'm just going to, like, it's still there. It's causing issues, you know? So when I was talking to a girlfriend of mine and she was like, because my husband and I got in an argument because I said, we need to go to therapy. I was like, well, let me just back up. I said it in a nice way. I was like, I said, babe, I think you've been doing great with therapy. And I've been doing a lot of my own healing. Because this is the thing. Even though I wasn't going to therapy, like, the last 2 years of my life have been so, like, meditation, self-help journals, like, all the things, like, very much, like, looking inward, working on myself, opening my mind up, all the things. So it's like learning as much as I could. So I felt like I was doing the work, but I was like, okay, just looking at the facts of the situation, like both of us come from divorced families and our parents have been remarried. I can't even say it on this microphone how many times. It's ridiculous. Sorry, Mom or Dad, if you're listening. But it's a lot. So I was like, the thing is that why would we assume we're just going to get it right and know from like, I met him when I was 19 years old.
Right.
What do I even know about a healthy relationship, So I was like, it makes sense. We need tools to learn how to communicate in a healthy way. And there's nothing embarrassing about that. And like, you're not the problem and I'm not the problem. We're coming to this relationship with what we were taught. And there's an issue because I would notice that whenever I bring something up, I would like gingerly place it in front of him and he would blow up about it and be like, his anxiousness would come out. What do you mean? You're trying to leave me, blah, blah, blah. Like you're going to, all these things. Like he's very like worried that this means the end. He's afraid abandonment's coming, So I would tone down my needs, tone them down till they're basically silent because I didn't want to be the one that made him have a breakdown. So what did that teach me? My emotions shouldn't be spoken out loud. What my emotional needs shouldn't be spoken out loud. I can handle myself better and easier than he can handle his emotions. So I just don't need to make that his burden. But that tilts the scale so much, and that will only lead to like a place of resentment or a place of like, it's just not going to work. Nobody can last that long and go into, infinity in that sort of relationship. It's just not going to work. So
not in a healthy way anyways.
Right. So I was like, I don't want that to be our future. I want us to feel both balanced and like we both have room. So I was talking to my friend about it and she's like, Kayla, how would you expect to have room? Like his emotions take up the whole space. There's nowhere for you to put yours. And I was like, damn, you're right.
I feel like I'm getting called out right now.
I know.
Well, but this is the thing. And that's why I try to explain to my husband because I don't think he thinks like, because this is the thing. And I agree. Nobody knows what you don't tell them. Nobody's a mind reader. So like he's really good at expressing what he needs. And I'm not. But part of that is because I don't feel like the environment is safe for me to do that. Because I don't want to crush him. And if I feel like he's so fragile that I can't say what my needs are without him taking it personally or taking it on as like he's the problem, then I don't have the space to share what I need, So it's like all I need for him to do is like to know that what I say is not a personal attack on you. It's just me saying like, this is what I need to feel confident moving forward. So I want us as a team to like be able to do that together, So like going to therapy was a great example. Like he was like, oh, I knew it. This is it. You want to leave me? Like you don't, like you're going to leave me like everyone else in my life, blah, blah, blah. Aww. And I was just like, it's not about you. Like, it's not about you. I'm trying to express an emotional need I have. And this is what I'm trying. And look, like, it's just a prime example of how it's not like able to happen because then it's a problem. There's an argument. So he calmed down and we talked about it more and like we're going to go to therapy together. But it's just like that awareness came about, I think, from my experience because another part of that too was me learning that like, oh, this is who I was as a child. I was the one who put my emotional needs to the side for the adult in the situation. And I've now replaced the adult with my husband. And same for him. It's like, my emotional needs would throw him into his trauma response. Mm-hmm. And then his trauma response, would be like screaming and, just lashing out because he's trying to like beg me to stay, in his own like metaphorical way.
Right.
It would make me want to detach from my emotions and just because when we get in an argument, it's like I end up like this, like I don't want to say anything.
Do you freeze?
Yeah, no, well, I guess so. But I think for him, he feels like I am pulling away. You know, because if I'm not saying like what he wants to hear, he feels like, or if I'm not saying anything at all, if I'm just like, yeah, frozen.
Right.
Then he's like, you're pulling away emotionally. You're leaving me emotionally. So then it like kicks in the, I mean, it's just like our triggers are a cycle.
I want Jason to listen to this episode.
And I was like, I made this connection in my brain and I was like, wow. Like it just was so clear to me once I thought it through and like seeing like my history and his history and us coming together and trying to work a relationship with our traumas, with our trauma responses. And I was like, wow, like this is literally the polar opposites.
Well, and you may be arguing about a certain situation, but this is something that Leah and I always say. It's always way deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's way deeper than what's on the surface.
Yeah.
So,
our therapist, our psychologist, when we started seeing someone for the two of us, the good one, we saw several who all sucked. But the good one, he kind of explained it as like learning a new dance. Like you've been taught this dance from the people who raised you, and that's the only dance you knew. And then you came together, and that's the dance you dance. Like,
Right.
Until one of you realized this isn't going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to learn the new moves together.
Yeah.
And I say that a lot too. I'm like, I'm 38, he's 44. Like this has been 38 years of patterning. It's not going to change overnight.
Yeah. It's like it been ingrained in your brain.
Yeah. Like I would love to be consciously aware of it all the time, but that I'm only human and I want you to call me out if I'm like returning to those behaviors or returning to those patterns. But what happens is if I call him out on returning to them, it's an attack.
Yeah.
So yeah, it very much is like, you've got to give each other grace and, hold each other accountable.
Yeah. I do think it's important though too to like have a person that you can talk to other than your spouse, because sometimes you just need to talk it out.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to be like a conversation that you have to bring up again and again and again if like you're just venting in that moment. Like that's one thing we've learned about my husband going to therapy is that I finally was like, I can't be your person. Like, and that's the thing. That was a boundary I had to learn and had to enforce with him was like, because I love you, because I love our marriage, I need you to share your problems with someone else. And I'm here like for, like the occasional, like, oh, I'm just so worn out with, whatever. But when it's an everyday thing that, it's like, it's wearing me out. And like, I need you to talk to somebody else because sometimes it's just, you just need to vent about it.
sure.
Yeah.
And like, if I'm the only person that you're really truly talking to, that is so much weight to put on me, like.
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And so it's like, so once he started going to therapy and he had that outlet where he could talk, because the thing is like, I want to fix it. If I hear a problem, if I hear him unhappy, I try to give him feedback. And then it's like,
She's so Jason.
when he doesn't take my
No,
advice.
are you a dude?
I think I'm more in my masculine energy most of the time because I have a wounded feminine, I think. But
I think it's just very rare sometimes. It's not rare. I don't know a lot of avoidant attachment females. I think it's usually the opposite.
But it's nice
But it's
to get that kind of
Perspective. That's what
and
I was just going to
feedback.
say. Like
'Cause
it's
Tony and Jason probably aren't like great talkers in those situations, explaining maybe
their perspective.
yeah, how they're feeling and where it stems from.
Guys.
Because they probably don't even really know.
yeah.
But
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if you ever need help with him, you come to us and you're like, hey, anxious attachment girls,
I know.
having this issue. What's that mean?
Well, I have a client. It's so funny. I have a client who we're friends also, and she's the anxious one, and her husband's like me, but her husband doesn't talk much either. And so I'll vent to her because she's one of my friends, I'll vent to her and she's like, me and your husband, we're the same person, And then I'm like, well, you know what? I feel really bad for your husband sometimes because it's really difficult to be with someone who's that anxious. And she's like,
we get that. I get that too. We say that a lot. I'm like, I know I'm a lot. I know that.
Well, what we always say too is like, can you, like, when we complain about our partners and then we're like, but can you imagine, like, if we dated somebody who was just like us?
No.
That'd be
I wouldn't.
so fucking much.
Who was it? I just saw, oh man, I can't remember who it was. It was somebody talking about, oh man, I think his name's Justin something. He was on the Aubrey Marcus podcast.
Peterson?
Maybe. He used to be an actor.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, anyway. He was saying that if you're with a partner who is like the exact opposite as like how you process emotion or like attachment style or whatever, that like, I mean, obviously it's like a make or break, but if you can sit with it and learn it and balance it, it's like literally, it's like your destiny. Like you're meant to be with that person because they're going to show you that whole
I think that
entire scope.
I think that the person that you end up choosing is supposed to be your mirror for life, your mirror to help you grow. Mm-hmm. And if you were the same, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's it's crazy because it kind of goes back to the Akashic records. Like you chose that.
Literally.
You chose that.
Actually, I have cold chills right now. In my husband's Akashic record reading, because I had her do his too, she said like his physical karma is your soul destiny. Like you all are this, like you were sent to him to force him to like live through his karma. Like
shit.
Yeah.
I really want to do that.
I know.
It's super
really
cool. I'll put you in contact with her. But
please.
One thing that she told me, I told you this too. I thought this was so cool. The like, what's your soul destiny? And I'm like, okay, what am I here for? You know, I'm like, yes, I'm so glad to find out. And like, when I found mine out, I was like, that's it.
What was it?
It was like, create heaven on earth. And I was like, that's stupid. Because in my mind, this is the thing. I was still kind of, at the time, sorting through, what do I believe heaven and hell is? Like, do I believe in it? In what context does that exist? So I was kind of like, still a little bit focused in my like Christian mindset of like, that's not even possible. Like, that's just, what does that even mean? My husband's soul destiny is create spiritual content. Yeah. Or no, hold on, wait. Was that what it was? Yeah. Or no, sorry. Create spiritual documentation. And so the lady who does these readings, that's what her soul destiny is. So she's like, this is what mine is. And this is how I do that, in her way. And so, which my husband had talked about, like writing. He wants to write a book. But so mine, I was just like, that's so stupid. Like, I hate that. Like, I don't know how to do that, Well, then as I've furthered myself and like learned more about, I have to show you guys this. I don't know if, have you guys ever seen the vibrational frequency like chart? Like this thing?
No.
I've seen that.
Okay.
Where like Jesus is on there or something.
So it has like the frequency over, like normally over here, what it'll tell you like what the actual, or no, here it is, 20. So it goes like 20 all the way up to 700. So there's like emotions that are tied to those frequencies. So like lower vibrational frequency is like shame, guilt, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. It goes up from there all the way to neutral, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment. So the highest is enlightenment. So when you learn about frequency, everyone has like their homeostasis of what they're vibing at most of the time, but it can fluctuate throughout the day. So some people believe that creating heaven on earth is reaching enlightenment, reaching full consciousness and all that kind of stuff. So raising your vibration to a point where you're like the Christ consciousness or whatever. So in that, when you're feeling those emotions of like, love and happiness and joy and all those high vibrational feelings, like living in that from day to day is like living in heaven on earth, Where like, if you're living in this like fear, shame, guilt, those all the time, it is essentially hell on earth, So seeing how what I do day to day with my clients and like my business and my concept with my business of like trying to, you know, just help people connect back to themselves and help them reach a higher state of vibration. Like I'm literally doing my mission, creating heaven on earth, like helping people raise their vibration. So I'm like, I'm doing it.
You're doing it.
So,
Have you read the 4 Agreements?
Oh yeah. It's in my shop.
Okay. That's, I was going to say that's another thing. That's where I realized I read that and I was like, oh, other people feel this way too. Like I am creating heaven on earth because I am at peace. I am happy. And by doing that, I'm in it. Mm-hmm. That's it. And it's not a destination.
That's the thing. And that's why I feel like that's a huge disconnect we're having right now in our world is that like people who are so religious focused are like waiting for the afterlife of like the promise at the end of the story. Mm-hmm. And instead of, and they're kind of like not even really here. Like they're really like not in their body, you know, they're like in the afterlife thought, you know? So they are not connecting with people in that way. And it's causing a lot of that like disconnect with like the journey versus the destination, you know? So,
this is beautiful.
Damn.
The way that she, like, I really think that the shop needs to have the alchemist or something in the name because the way that you have turned all of this and alchemized it into like pain, into beauty and
well, that's what I want to call it. Alchemy, transforming from within, because it's like, and that's the thing I was telling you about the first time I met you about my business, like the conscious beauty method.
Yeah.
I really want to focus on like helping people connect to their most authentic self and how they feel on the inside should be reflected on the outside. So like my goal is just to help them. Who do you want to be? Like, I want to have a full blown like therapy session and then be like, now let's do your hair. You know, like I want people to like connect the inside and then like reflect it on the outside, you know,
which I think is beautiful. We work in a very similar industry.
Yeah.
I have to remove myself from these relationships because of what it's doing to my family life and my mental health.
And I think for me, I mean, it was really hard at first because I was like, I felt like this industry is toxic. It's so vain. It's so like just fake and like.
Did you start feeling that when you were going through your awakening?
Yeah. And I was like, it's built on insecurity. Like it's like literally built on people feeling terrible about themselves. Like, and I mean, I would even say I was kind of coached early on in my extension life to really focus in on people's insecurity and like use that pain point as a selling point. And I think a lot of people do that in how they sell things, you know. And I get it. Like you're trying to find like a connection of like what's someone really insecure about and you're trying to give them a solution. But I don't want people to be addicted to what I can do for them. I want to teach them how they can like fulfill themselves, you know, and connect to themselves and be enough. And to me, it's like, yes, extensions are like a luxury and they enhance. But to me, it's like, I want people to do what they feel like they want to do because they are pouring into themselves and they're like, you know, I want to get filler because I want to do it. Not because I have to do it. Not because I feel less if I don't do it. But because like I'm here to have a human experience and to enjoy life. And I work hard and I, you know, play hard and all the things. And like, to me, I want to do this because it's what I want to reflect, you know, or whatever it might be. Like, do it for yourself. Don't do it for other people. And like, if it's for you, do it, you know, but if you're doing it for other people, like, it's probably there's a root problem that like you're really just insecure about something that you're,
I mean, you're the only manifestor I know, but I was going to say you're my favorite manifestor. You're the only other one I know.
I don't know any other ones, but you are my favorite.
I will take that spot.
So I guess I don't know if I don't think you're taking new clients right now, are you? Or your books aren't open?
So right now I'm not. No, I'm not currently, but I am thinking about I really want to focus on like reframing the business for 2023 and do more of the conscious approach.
Yeah.
So that's going to look different in lots of ways. Like, I kind of have a 3-tier plan. It's like the provider, the client, and the atmosphere. So it's like everything should be done with intention. Whether it's like me as the provider, I need to have myself in a good balance where I can show up to my appointment and really give. And this is how I want to change the beauty industry is like, I would love to coach other providers on how to take accountability and set boundaries and have a healthy work-life balance so that they can learn to pour into themselves and then show up as this like high vibe person that can give you your service. So then the client can feel that in return and they don't feel like they're like, oh, you triple booked yourself. You didn't get a lunch. You didn't. So now you're going to do a half-assed job on me. You know, like, no, like I do like 1 to 2 clients a day. That's it. Because my appointments are long and I really value my time with my clients and I really focus on like building that connection with them. So obviously it's client focused too. You know, that's always the case for any business, but I want to add elements of, you know, spiritual guidance or if it's a human design reading or something like that in with their service. So when they leave, they feel like they know themselves better. They feel more confident with who they're designed to be in the world. And then the atmosphere portion, it's like, I really want to do more conscious or more planetary conscious. Like, you know, have you ever heard of green circle?
No.
So it's like how to have minimal to no waste in your service. So like they recycle like foils into car parts and bicycle frames.
Oh, cool.
They recycle color, like when you have color left over, they give you like a bin and you put it in there. They turn it into clean energy fuel. The plastic and paper is recycled as usual, but like it's like really to truly show you to do no waste in your business. So
that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And I think that like people would like to support businesses who are trying to do something that's planetary conscious because, you know, it's like everybody wants to recycle and help, but they're like, is it really helping? But like if businesses took it upon themselves to like make that part of their mission, I feel like people would want to support those businesses.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I would.
Okay, I know. Okay. Well, all right. So I want our listeners to find you, whether it's Ivory Moon Shop or your extension business. Like, plug your stuff. Plug away.
So on Instagram, you can follow me at ivorymoon.shop for my shop. And I don't currently have my online sale or my online store running, but that's a goal for 2023 to get that back up. My shop's in downtown New Albany inside Cozy Candle Company. And then my Instagram for hair is kayla.mansfield.extensions. So
thank you for
Thank
sharing
you,
with us today.
you're welcome.
Thank you for being here with us today and for your beautiful energy. And for our listeners,
My pleasure.
we will see you guys on the other side.